from the footballgameplan.com, where football makes sense. I'm Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Bring you our 2013 CFL season preview. We're taking a look at the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. We're going to break down their offense, their defense, as well as their special teams to see what we can expect from the Bombers this upcoming season. But first, let's go back to the 2013 CFL Draft to see how well they did this past May.
The Bombers came into the 2013 draft wanting to get younger at the receiver position, and they were able to accomplish that, adding guys that can also play slot back. You look at Carl Fitzgerald, the big play tight end from St. Mary's, Michael DeCrose from McMaster, and Stephen Ali out of Florida. All guys encompass what they look for in their receiving targets. The key pick for the Bombers, in my opinion, was their first selection with Andy Malamba out of Eastern Michigan. This is a guy that brings tremendous pass rushing ability off the edge. Now, he signed as an undrafted free agent with the Green Bay Packers, but I think he has a great chance of being on the Bombers roster in 2013 and would add even more firepower to an already talented defensive end position. The question I have for the Bombers is why no offensive line help? I know they went receiver heavy. They want to get younger at that position, but I think they could have bolstered the talent and depth up front on that offensive line. That's the only question I have about this draft. I actually like what the Bombers did. I'm giving them a solid B for their draft. Andy Malamba is a guy that I think they can help out their defense right away if he's on the roster in 2013. But the receiver position, they wanted to get younger. They added a big play tight end in Carl Fitzgerald, and I think that's going to help them in the long run. Overall, all of these picks were for the future, and I like the talent that they were able to integrate in their program. When healthy, with a heavy emphasis on both when and healthy, Buck Pierce has been a very good player for the Bombers. I just couldn't put up with that type of inconsistency at the quarterback position. That's why it's vital for the Bombers to have a plan B, not only for this season, but for the future. And right now they have veteran quarterback Justin Goltz, who has been with the Bombers for the last 3 seasons, who will compete with 2 new signees in Chase Clement out of Rice and Max Hall out of BYU. Both guys have NFL playing experience, and I like what Clement brings to the table. He was an outstanding quarterback at Rice. He helped jumpstart that program's resurgence, athletic and accurate. Keep an eye on him in training camp. And Max Hall was a very productive player in his own right at BYU. He has that arm that you want. He can make all of the throws. So both guys, in my opinion, pose a serious threat to Golt's stranglehold on that number 2 quarterback position. I'm a big fan of the Bombers' running game, and they'll probably have to rely on it just a little bit more so this season. Second-year back Chad Simpson was a pleasant surprise. Last year, Simpson signed with the Bombers in January of 2012, and in his first season in the CFL, he rushed for over 1,000 yards despite missing the first 3 games. He was also valuable catching the football out of the backfield with 33 receptions. I also like the former 2010 4th-round draft pick Anthony Woodson out of Calgary. His season was cut short last year because of a shoulder injury, but he's back at 100% and will get every opportunity to showcase his talents that made him one of the top backs in the CIS. Another second-year back to keep an eye on is Will Ford from South Carolina State. I watched this guy a lot for the Bulldogs. He scored 3 touchdowns last year, and Ford possesses that make you miss ability that you want coming out of the backfield. The Bombers have some of the biggest wide receivers in the Canadian Football League, and they're led by 6'5", 230-pound Chris Matthews, who finished last season with over 1,100 yards and 7 touchdowns. Now, veteran wide receiver Terrence Edwards is not participating in camp due to a lingering injury, but that just opens the door for more talent to seize the additional reps in practice. And a trio of guys are poised for some huge seasons. You look at slot back Corey Watson, who was the team's 2010 second-round draft pick, who only had 35 receptions last year and would be the one that could be the leader out of this group. And at 6'3", 215 pounds, the 4-year man out of Concordia possesses excellent hands with deceptive speed. And the team's 3rd leading receiver last year, Clarence Denmark, who runs some of the best routes, could also see his numbers increase. In only 2 seasons with the Bombers, Denmark has hauled in 119 catches with over 1,400 yards. Keto Pobla is a guy that's ready to build on the success that he had last season, and he do have some other tall targets in Doug Pierce at 6'5" out of Friends University and Kurt Adams, who's also 6'5", could see some more action this year, especially in the red zone. Both guys provide those instant matchup problems. So I'm fine with their receiving core. They just have to get some consistency at the quarterback position. The Bombers have some talent along the front lines, which is the big part of their ability to run the football so well. And I'm particularly fond of the two bookends they have in Glenn January and Shannon Boatman. Now, January was a guy that was a blindside protector as well as a very good run blocker from their left tackle position. And he also made his second consecutive All-Star team. And Boatman, who's 6'6", 342 pounds out of Florida State, he didn't start until week 9 of the season, but was an anchor on the right side once he entered the lineup. And the Bombers are solid on the interior. They're led by their 2010 draft pick, Chris Greaves, who showed tremendous versatility last season. And Paul Swisson is a guy that could possibly start on most teams, but he provides excellent depth at the tackle position. Now, pass pro is a slight concern. They gave up 44 sacks last season. That's second to last in the Canadian Football League, but that could also be attributed to spotty quarterback play last season. Again, you see the theme here. Consistency at the QB spot could alleviate a lot of the Bombers' issues. The Bombers were able to put the quarterback on the ground 43 times last season, which was second in the CFL, 27 of which were by the defensive line, and 3 of the 4 starters returned up front. You look at defensive ends, Kenny Maynard and Alex Hall, both guys who bring a lot of speed and athleticism off the edge, and defensive tackle Brian Turner was named to the 2012 All-Star team. JT Gilmore will be asked to step in at defensive tackle next to Turner and to continue to provide that interior pressure that they were used to seeing last season. And I like some of the depth that they have on their defensive line. You look at defensive tackle Andre Carroll, second-year man, and defensive end Marcus Frazier out of SMU. Both guys are great rotational guys that you want on your roster. There's a slight question mark at one of the linebacker positions outside of former 2011 first overall selection Hanik Mwamba. Now, Mwamba is a guy that had a breakout season last year with 65 tackles and 3 sacks, and look for him to take even bigger strides this year as well. Loads of competition at one of the outside linebacker spots. Two guys that stand out to me are Terrell Parker, 5'11", 225 pounds out of Glenville State, and Wendell Brown at 6 feet, 214 pounds out of Ball State. Now, Parker shows good change of direction skills and is a very good tackler. Brown plays more like a strong safety, so it does give the Bombers some flexibility at the second level of their defense. If they want to bolster that underneath coverage, they could throw throw Brown in there, and he could do a great job in pass coverage. The other linebacker position, which is the Sam position, is essentially an extra defensive back, and they have a good one in Damon Washington. And when you look at Johnny Sears providing quality depth back there as well, he was a team leader in interceptions last season with 3. There's a lot to like about the linebacker position, but there's a battle at one of the outside spots between Parker and Brown, in my opinion. When you talk Bombers secondary, the first name you bring up is Javon Johnson, a 4-time All-Star, played all over the defense last season because of injuries in the unit, but health permitted, this defense can be effective in my opinion. Manning the opposite corner spot is Brandon Stewart at 6'1", 200 pounds. He has more physicality and is able to match up very well versus the bigger wide receivers. He also has the ability to play closer to the line of scrimmage. And I love their halfbacks. Both guys are shifty and active. You look at Alex Suber and Jonathan Hefney, and they also provide the versatility within that defense because they can slide down and play the same position as well. And coming over from the BC Lions, free safety Kachi Mwamba had his best season last year with 41 tackles and 2 interceptions. Now the Bombers are hoping he continues on that upward path towards success. The Bombers have a very solid special teams unit in my opinion, and since moving to the backup middle linebacker position, Pierre-Luc Labbé has been a very good special teams player. He was second on the team last year with 13 special teams tackles. They also have a dangerous returnman in Damon Washington, 2 punt returns for touchdowns last season and went over 1,400 yards on kickoff returns. The talented cornerback Javon Johnson also chipped in last year with over 300 yards on his punt returns at 11 yards per return. So they're getting it done in a return game. And 5-year vet punter Mike Renard averaged over 34 yards a punt last season with the long of 72. And kicker Justin Pillardi is one of the more accurate kickers in the CFL at 86% and had a long field goal of 46 yards. The road to the Grey Cup for the Blue Bombers include number 1, quarterback play. They have to have consistent and healthy play from that position. Buck Pierce is back there. That helps these guys a lot. That gets them where they need to be, but they also have to be ready if he's not back there. So keep an eye on that backup quarterback position battle with Max Hall, Chase Clement, and Justin Goltz. At number 2, the defense can't allow the big play like they did last season. That plagued this defense. I know they had injuries, but they can't give up the big play like they were able to do in 2012. And finally, the second down defense has to get better. They got to get teams off the field, get the offensive ball back. We know they can run the football. If they can chew up the TOP, this could be a good year for Winnipeg. I think the Bombers finished second in the East Division. I like this team being able to run the football, and they got some quality depth in the backfield. Their offensive line is built to run the football. They have to improve on their pass protection. The quarterbacks have to stay healthy. So let's bank on the positive side that Buck Pierce will stay healthy for the full season. We saw what happened when he was able to do that in 2011. They made the Grey Cup. I think a healthy defense, adding pass rushers, talented secondary. This will be a team that will surprise. I think they'll do better than what they did last year and end up in the playoffs. I also want to thank these Blue Bomber fan sites for always showing football game plan support.